Welcome back to the Drowned City Theorycrafting. I'm rather incoherent, and today I want to talk about Enraptured 2 in Norman. Enraptured 2 is a disgusting card in general. It's basically a full refill on a Rite of Seeking or a Clairvoyance. It's incredible in pretty much everyone. The only reason this card might not be just like brokenly powerful is because of an opinion that I hold, which is generally you don't need that many charges, right? I've consistently seen Uncage the Soul 3 get played as Uncage the Soul 0 every single time. I've never seen anyone run out of charges in like the past 5 campaigns. They've just been fine. So Enraptured 2 might be kind of gross overkill in that regard. Now that said, sure, 3 charges might be overkill, but what about infinite charges? What about 3 charges every turn? Because you can do the same Norman thing that he used to do at Deduction level 0. You use Astronomical Atlas, you take Enraptured off the top of your deck, put it under the Atlas, commit it to a test, pass, get the effect, get the 3 clues. Then you use Norman's Signature Tome to put it back on top of your deck next turn and do the same thing all over again. And yeah, it's just incredibly powerful. That's 3 charges a turn. You can't possibly use Clairvoyance level 5 or Rite of Seeking level 3 fast enough. You're just going to get all of the clues. You have unlimited charges. And what better to do with unlimited charges than stop taking damage forever by playing Spectral Shield and converting those charges directly to health and damage. Sorry, health and Horror Soak, can't talk. To me, it seems like Norman's probably one of the best abusers of Spectral Shield in the game, because rather than running, frankly, slightly weaker Mystic assets and stuff like Eyes of the Dreamer, he's able to infinitely fuel the best Mystic assets using Enraptured. Other characters have an opportunity cost for Spectral Shield, where they're running what could be weaker Mystic cards to enable this, and then even once they're doing that, it's a limited resource they're choosing to spend on this. But for Norman, he'd be running Enraptured 2, he'd be running Astronomical Atlas, he'd be running Rite of Seeking level 4. Whether or not Spectral Shield existed, this is just free invincibility that you can give to a teammate as well, mind you, at basically no cost to Norman. It's absolutely wildly powerful, and probably where Spectral Shield is its most broken, thanks to the unlimited charges given by looping Enraptured in Norman. That's not all the deck does, obviously. You still just have Practice Makes Perfect, the ability to put any card back from your hand into your deck, with Deduction level 0, Perception 0, Promise of Power, and Enraptured for insane consistency on that, Ward level 2 for Mythos Resilience, Foresight to accelerate your own deck because you know what you're going to draw, Deep Knowledge for team support and your own consistency, Crack the Case and Midnight Oil for general good economy, some of which can be shared amongst your team, and the rest of it's what you'd expect. It's basically just Research Librarian that we haven't covered already, to find those tomes you built your whole deck around. It's a very streamlined, very powerful deck. It essentially gives up on the idea of trying to play a flex character because there's so few slots for arcane assets. I'm only running 3 here. And instead, it is pursuing single-mindedly the idea of making yourself plus 1 friend invincible while using max level Mystic assets with unlimited charges, and that's just more than good enough to be an absolutely broken Cluever. Where the hype dies down for this sort of deck archetype a little bit, well, partially it's with Library Pass not being here. Norman is a character defined by tomes, and Library Pass is a card I've seen hype for in Norman, but frankly, I don't really see the value in this, because Library Pass is at its best when you're using Scroll of Secrets to replay the same tome after emptying it every single round. I covered this previously in my Daisy video, and here you're gonna be keeping Atlas or your signature tome on board forever. I don't really see a huge amount of value in this. I'm having a hard time fitting Scroll of Secrets in the deck at all, let alone other tomes to capitalize on it. I'm sure Library Pass in Norman will be good because Norman is great and Library Pass is broken, but I'm not convinced it's the best thing in Norman. I would love for anyone in the comments who understands why Library Pass is better than I'm giving it credit for to correct me, because I feel like I'm missing something. I'm looking at peanut butter and jelly, but I cannot visualize it in a sandwich. That's how I feel. But aside from not running Library Pass, where the deck really loses a lot of its hype is at level 0. At level 0, it's pretty much just old Norman, except there are 2 copies of a Spectral Shield and literally no charges in the deck. As a result, these are just events that will prevent 1 damage or horror. Not literally useless, but pretty awful, clearly not deserving of a slot, and because you only get 5 level 0 purple cards, which are going to be locked into Promise of Power and 1 St. Hubert's Key, it's pretty hard to justify doing anything else. The final deck is quite expensive, like the core is 29 experience, all of this stuff is absolutely critical. So running something over the St. Hubert's Key, namely Eyes of the Dreamer to enable this at level 0 might be better, but you're going to be stuck with that Eyes of the Dreamer for quite a while and probably not too happy about it. I considered starting off with a Rite of Seeking level 2 instead of a Astronomical Atlas, but without Enraptured level 2, it's only 3 charges. It's not even good with Spectral Shield. And then I considered maybe you don't start with Astronomical Atlas at all, right? Maybe you just bank in the thick of it, because if you get 8 experience, which you probably will with 3 banked, then you can take 2 Enraptured level 2 and 2 Rite of Seeking level 2, but you need the Astronomical Atlas to loop it. And realistically, in a lot of campaigns in Scenario 2, you still won't be doing Spectral Shield any justice. In some campaigns, if you do well in Scenario 1, you might, but this is probably a Scenario 3 thing where you finally have enough pieces. You have 1 Atlas, you have 2 Rite of Seeking level 2, you have 2 Enraptured level 2. It's an 11 experience deck core that you absolutely need to fulfill the deck promise. And that's a bit rough. But once you get there, it's kind of wildly powerful. I don't think it's like the same level as the Ascetic deck I was showing off in Daisy the other day, but if you were going to go Ascetic on somebody, Norman's definitely a candidate. You can spend that 13 experience on 2 copies of Enraptured, 1 copy of Astronomical Atlas, 2 copies of Rite of Seeking level 2, and 2 copies of Foresight to have a pretty solid character. I personally would be going for Daisy, but it's not awful at all. There's just a ton of very, very compact and valuable experience right at the start of this deck. And once you get off the ground, like the starting deck's not bad, right? This is just bog standard 5-book Seeker, does gross things, loops deduction a little bit, not that much. But then you come into Scenario 3 with literally infinite charges due to Enraptured 2 on the Astronomical Atlas, using them on Rite of Seeking level 4, probably not level 4 yet. You're probably just getting 2 clues at a time in Scenario 3, but still, and you're using them to prevent damage to you and potentially also your teammates. It's a very, very strong deck concept. Norman got a huge boost out of Enraptured 2, and while everyone's going to like the card, it's just a very powerful card, maybe a hilarious oversight in my top 10 video, maybe Enraptured 2 deserved a much bigger spotlight, but I gave String along the top 10 spot instead. But Enraptured 2 is incredible. I think Norman's probably one of the most hyped users of it, and I wanted to show off just what he can do with it, and maybe the most broken use case for Spectral Shield imaginable, because while other characters will use Spectral Shield and be invincible because of it, none of them do it with as little opportunity cost as Norman, and Norman already started off very near to the top of the tier list before he became functionally unkillable. So yeah, Norman's looking hot going into the Drowned City. Norman stocks are through the roof right now. I'm very happy with the state of the character. He looks very fun to play. I'm looking forward to revisiting Norman down the line, and I hope you are too. That'll be all for now. These Theorycraft videos, when I'm going over older characters, are going to be a lot simpler, because I've already made videos not that long ago covering these characters. I'm not going to retread all the same ground covering the exact same thing. I'm going to be focusing pretty exclusively on the new stuff, and that means that the video is not going to be all that lengthy, because there's not that much new stuff in any given deck. It's enough to meaningfully change the archetype, change the power level, but it's only like maybe 6 to 10 cards per deck that actually change. That's the high end, really. Short video aside, I'm pretty happy with this build for Norman. I'm looking forward to playing it. I hope you think it's hyped too. Anyways, that'll be all for now. I've been Rather Incoherent. Thank you for your time. If you made it this far, which is a lot more likely with the shorter videos, I'd appreciate if you could hit all the buttons beneath the video on your way out to boost it up in the algorithm. And a massive thank you to everyone supporting this channel, both over on Patreon as patrons and here on YouTube as channel members. I'll see all of you in the next one.